Hello students, this is Mr. Laubach. Thank you for joining me. In this video, I'm going to go over the results and consequences of the War of 1812. Now, the War of 1812 is often termed America's Second War for Independence, and it was a conflict between the United States and Great Britain that lasted from 1812 to 1815. First, let me give you a quick review rundown on the war. Rooted in several issues, including maritime disputes, British impressment of American sailors, and British support for Native American resistance to American expansion, the war saw significant battles fought both on land and on sea. Despite initial setbacks and military stalemates, notable events like the burning of Washington, D.C. by the British, the successful defense of Baltimore's Fort McHenry, which is where the Inner Harbor is, which also inspired the writing of the American national anthem by Francis Scott Keyes, all marked pivotal moments in the war. The war concluded with the Treaty of Ghent, which restored pre-war territorial boundaries and addressed some grievances, ultimately solidifying a sense of national identity and independence for the young United States. The War of 1812, despite being largely considered a stalemate militarily, had several important results and consequences for the United States. So I'm going to go over a couple of them. National identity and patriotism. The war solidified a sense of American national identity and patriotism, especially after the successful defense of New Orleans and the perception of a victory, even though the Treaty of Ghent was signed before the battle. I will talk more about this battle a little bit later. The end of impressment and maritime issues. The issues of impressment, which was the British practice of seizing American sailors and forcing them to serve in the British Navy, and maritime rights, which were among the key causes of the war, were effectively resolved, though these issues had started to fade by war's end due to changes in British policy. Native American resistance diminished for the United States. Native American resistance to the westward expansion was significantly weakened by the defeat of Tecumseh. This allowed for further territorial expansion by the U.S. So a big loser in the war were Native Americans, who lost a lot of their land holdings to white settlers from the United States. Industrial growth. The war stimulated American industry as imports were restricted, leading to increased domestic manufacturing. After the war, manufacturing shifted towards peacetime items and ushered in the Industrial Revolution. The demise of the Federalist Party. The Hartford Convention and the perception of the Federalist opposition to the war as being out of touch and unpatriotic led to the decline and eventual extinction of the Federalist Party. This also contributed to the dominance of the Republican Party in the era of good feelings, which was the time period after the War of 1812. Improved British relations. The war ended with the signing of the Treaty of Ghent, establishing peace between the United States and Britain. Over time, this laid the groundwork for improved diplomatic relations and trade between the two nations. As history would go on, the United States and Britain would become great allies. The war also saw the rise to prominence of Andrew Jackson. He led U.S. forces against the British, including a very important victory at the Battle of New Orleans, where his undermanned crew defeated the mighty British Army. Ironically, at this point, the Treaty of Ghent had already been signed, but news had not yet gotten to the United States. However, this impressive military victory pushed Andrew Jackson into the national spotlight. He would eventually ride this spotlight to be one of the most influential presidents in U.S. history years later. Another byproduct of the War of 1812 was that the United States military grew dramatically. Prior to the war, the U.S. military was very modest. In an effort to fight the war, the military, of course, was built up. Not only did they improve their strength of the army, but they also built a significant navy. So those are just a couple of the reasons that the War of 1812 was so consequential for the United States. These results collectively shaped America's trajectory, contributing to its sense of identity, territorial expansion, economic growth, and changes in political dynamics. So I hope you learned a little bit more about the War of 1812 and what the results were. Thanks for listening and have a great rest of the day.